The champagne bottle shattered against the dock post as Karen screamed, "You can't do this to me." But Marcus held the deed high above his head, water dripping from his clothes, eyes blazing with 20 years of suppressed rage. "Watch me," he growled, as the bulldozer's engine roared to life behind him. Karen's face went white as she realized the truth. She'd been trespassing on his property for 2 decades, and now the lake itself, the morning sun cast long shadows across Cedar Lake as Karen Whitmore stepped onto what she'd come to think of as her dock, a steaming cup of artisanal coffee in one manicured hand and her phone in the other. The wooden planks creaked under her designer sandals as she surveyed her domain, the floating yoga platform she'd installed last month, the meditation bells hanging from the overhead pergola, and the private sanctuary, "No trespassing" sign she'd posted at the dock's entrance. "Namaste, beautiful morning," she whispered to herself, settling into her lotus position on the imported teak flooring. The lake stretched before her like a mirror, reflecting the affluent homes that lined the shore. This was her slice of heaven, her personal retreat from the chaos of running her wellness empire. For 3 years, she'd treated this dock as her private spa, hosting exclusive yoga retreats for her high-paying clients and building her social media following with #DockLifeGoals posts. A splash in the distance caught her attention. Through the morning mist, she could make out a figure swimming toward the dock with strong, determined strokes. Karen's jaw tightened. Not today. She'd specifically chosen this early hour to avoid the local riffraff who sometimes tried to use her dock. The swimmer emerged from the water, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and shoulders that spoke of decades of manual labor. Water streamed from his weathered face as he hauled himself onto the dock's ladder, his work boots squelching against the wet wood. "Excuse me," Karen said, not bothering to hide her irritation. "This is private property. Can't you read the sign?" The man straightened slowly, his dark eyes taking in the yoga mats, the meditation setup, and Karen's entitled posture. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of controlled fury. "My name is Marcus Rivera. I've been swimming to this dock since I was 12 years old." "Well, you can't anymore," Karen snapped, rising to her feet. "I've invested thousands of dollars in creating this wellness space. I have clients coming for a sunrise session in an hour, and I won't have some random local disrupting the energy." Marcus studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You've invested thousands, you say?" "That's right. The yoga platform alone cost $3,000. The sound system, the meditation bells, the organic teak flooring, do you have any idea what it takes to create a space like this?" "As a matter of fact, I do." Marcus reached into his waterproof pouch and pulled out a folded document. "Because I built this dock with my own hands 23 years ago." Karen's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "That's impossible. This dock belongs to the Hendersons. They gave me permission to use it for my wellness practice." "The Hendersons," Marcus repeated, his voice deadly quiet. "Tom and Linda Henderson." "Of course. They are lovely people. Very supportive of my work." Marcus nodded slowly. "Tom Henderson was my business partner. We built this dock together the summer before my daughter was born. He died of a heart attack 6 months ago." The color drained from Karen's face, but she quickly recovered. "Well, that's very sad. But Linda Henderson is still very much alive, and she's the one who..." "Linda Henderson has Alzheimer's," Marcus interrupted. "She's been in a care facility for 8 months. Her son David is handling her affairs." He unfolded the document in his hands. "And David doesn't know anything about giving you permission to use this dock." Karen's coffee cup trembled in her hand. There must be some mistake. I've been using this dock for 3 years. I have a verbal agreement with a woman who hasn't been mentally competent to make agreements for over a year." Marcus stepped closer, and Karen could smell the lake water on his skin, could see the decades of sun and hard work etched into his face. "But here's the thing, Karen. Even if Linda was competent, even if she had given you permission, she couldn't have. Because this dock isn't on Henderson property." "What are you talking about?" Marcus held up the document. "Property survey, commissioned last month. Turns out when Tom and I built this dock, we placed it 3 feet onto my property. Tom always said he'd make it right, but life got in the way. Work, family, health problems. His voice cracked slightly. I never pressed the issue because Tom was my friend. Karen's wellness guru facade cracked. You're lying. Survey was done by Precision Land Services. You can call them yourself. Marcus's smile was thin and cold. Congratulations, Karen. You've been trespassing on my property for 3 years. Every yoga class, every meditation session, every time you've charged people to use this dock, you've been operating an illegal business on land you don't own. This is ridiculous. Karen's voice rose to a shriek. I have rights. I've invested money, time, my reputation, your reputation. Marcus laughed bitterly. You want to talk about reputation? Let me tell you about mine. I'm a contractor. I build things. I fix things. And for 23 years, I've watched this dock deteriorate while the Henderson's property fell into disrepair. I've watched you turn my craftsmanship into some kind of Instagram backdrop. Karen's phone buzzed with a text from her assistant, sunrise session clients arriving in 30 minutes. Everything ready? Look, Karen said, forcing her voice to remain calm, maybe we can work something out. I run a very successful business. I could pay you rent, or we could form some kind of partnership. Marcus's laugh was devoid of humor. You posted a no trespassing sign on my own dock. You've been charging people to use my property without my permission. You've treated me like some kind of vagrant for swimming in waters I've been swimming in since before you were born. I didn't know, you didn't care to know. Marcus folded the survey and slipped it back into his pouch. But ignorance isn't a defense for theft. Karen's phone buzzed again. This time it was a notification from her business insurance company about her upcoming liability renewal. Her stomach dropped as she realized the implications. If she'd been operating illegally on someone else's property. What do you want? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus looked out across the lake, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. I want you gone. I want every trace of your wellness sanctuary removed from my property. And I want it done today. Today. That's impossible. I have clients, commitments, equipment that took weeks to install, should have thought of that before you decided to squat on my land. Marcus turned back to her, and Karen saw something in his eyes that made her blood run cold. You have until sunset, Karen. Remove everything, or I'll have it removed for you. You can't do this. I'll sue you. You'll what? Sue me for wanting to use my own property. Marcus stepped closer, and Karen instinctively backed away. Go ahead. Call your lawyer. But while you're at it, you might want to call your insurance company too. Ask them about their policy on illegal business operations. Karen's phone rang. The caller ID showed her biggest client, a tech CEO who'd booked the dock for a corporate retreat next week. Her hands shook as she declined the call. Please, she said, her voice cracking. This business is my life. I've built everything around this place. My clients, my reputation, my income, your income built on stolen land. Marcus's voice was implacable. You made your choice when you decided to claim what wasn't yours. Now you get to live with the consequences. The sound of car doors slamming echoed across the lake. Karen looked toward the shore and saw her sunrise yoga clients walking down the path toward the dock, their mats tucked under their arms, their faces bright with anticipation. What am I supposed to tell them? She whispered. Marcus was already lowering himself back into the water. Tell them the truth, Karen. Tell them you've been lying to them for 3 years. As he swam away, Karen stood alone on the dock she'd claimed as her own, watching her carefully constructed world begin to crumble. Her phone buzzed with another text from her assistant, clients are here. Where are you? Karen looked at the approaching yoga students, then at the meditation bell swaying in the morning breeze, then at the survey document Marcus had left on the dock railing. The paper fluttered in the wind, and she could see the official seal, the precise measurements. The undeniable truth printed in black and white. She picked up the document with trembling hands and read the words that would destroy everything she'd built. Property line extends 3.2 feet beyond original survey marker, encompassing dock structure and immediate surrounding water rights. Water rights. The phrase hit her like a physical blow. Marcus didn't just own the dock, he owned the water around it. As her clients called out cheerful greetings from the shore, Karen Whitmore realized she was standing in the middle of someone else's lake, on someone else's dock, about to lose everything she'd stolen without ever knowing she was a thief. The morning sun climbed higher and Karen's shadow grew shorter, as if the very light was abandoning her to face the darkness of her own making. 3 hours later, the dock had transformed into a battlefield. Karen's yoga clients had fled after her stammering explanation about property disputes, leaving behind their mats and their money. Her assistant, Brianna, sat cross-legged on the dock's edge, frantically making cancellation calls while Karen paced like a caged animal. "Mrs. Patterson wants to know if her Thursday session is still on," Brianna called out, her voice strained. "And the Henderson Foundation people are asking about the charity event next month." Karen stopped pacing and stared at her assistant. "The Henderson Foundation? The fundraiser you scheduled for Linda Henderson's Alzheimer's research?" Brianna's confusion was evident. "You said it was her family's idea, a way to honor her memory while she's not dead, Brianna." Karen's voice was hollow. "She's in a care facility. And her family doesn't know anything about our arrangement." The weight of her situation crashed over her like a wave. Every event she'd hosted, every client she'd charged, every social media post showing her private sanctuary, it was all built on a lie she hadn't even known she was telling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, deadline moved up. "You have until 2 p.m. Removal crew arrives at 2:01. Removal crew." Karen's blood ran cold. She called the number Marcus had left, her fingers trembling as she dialed. "Rivera Construction," a gruff voice answered. "This is Karen Whitmore. I need to speak to Marcus Rivera about the dock situation." "Marcus is busy. You can talk to me." "This is Danny, his foreman. Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm willing to negotiate, to work something out." Danny's laugh was harsh. "Lady, you've had 3 years to work something out. Marcus told me what you did to him this morning. How you treated him like some kind of vagrant. I didn't know, you didn't care to know. Marcus has been talking about that dock for months, how it's falling apart, how he wants to restore it properly. You know what stopped him? You. Every time he came to work on his own property, you chased him off." Karen's mind raced. "Work on it? What kind of work?" "Structural repairs. The dock's been compromised for 2 years. Marcus had to get permits, hire an engineer, file reports with the county. That's how he found out about the property line issue." "Compromised how?" "South piling is rotting. The whole platform could collapse if too many people stand on it at once." Danny's voice turned cold. "How many people do you usually have on that dock for your yoga classes?" Karen's throat went dry. 15. Sometimes 20. Jesus Christ. You've been putting people in danger for months." The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone, then at the dock beneath her feet. She'd noticed some creaking lately, some slight give in the boards, but she'd attributed it to normal settling. Now she was standing on a potential death trap, and she'd been charging people to join her. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed her business insurance agent. "Karen. This is Jim Morrison from Lakeside Insurance. I just got a very interesting call from someone claiming you've been operating your business on illegally occupied property. I need to ask you some questions." Karen's legs gave out. She sank onto one of her meditation cushions, the irony not lost on her. "Jim, I can explain, I hope you can, because if these claims are true, your policy is void. Every claim, every liability issue, every accident that's happened on that dock, none of it would be covered." "Accident?" Karen's voice was barely a whisper. "The woman who slipped during your retreat last month. Sarah Chen. She's talking about filing a lawsuit for her medical expenses." If you were operating illegally. Karen remembered Sarah's fall. The way she'd clutched her ankle, the tears in her eyes. Karen had convinced her it was just a minor sprain, had even convinced her not to seek immediate medical attention. Now she realized the dock's structural problems might have caused the accident. Jim, I need you to hold off on any investigations until I can sort this out. I'm sorry, Karen, but I can't do that. We've already started the process. If you've been operating without proper permits on property you don't own, we have to protect ourselves. The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone, then at the meditation bell swaying in the breeze. Everything she'd built was crumbling, and she was powerless to stop it. Brianna approached cautiously. Karen. There's a man here to see you. He says he's from the county. Karen looked up to see an official in a khaki uniform walking down the dock, clipboard in hand. Behind him, she could see Marcus Rivera standing on the shore, his arms crossed, watching. Ms. Whitmore. I'm Inspector Rodriguez from the County Planning Department. I need to talk to you about your business permits. My permits? According to our records, you've been operating a commercial venture on this property without proper zoning approval, environmental impact studies, or business licenses. Karen's mind went blank. Oh. I didn't know I needed it. Ignorance isn't a defense under county law. We've received reports of up to 20 people gathering on this dock for commercial activities. The structure hasn't been inspected for commercial use, and the environmental impact on the lake hasn't been assessed. Inspector Rodriguez walked to the south end of the dock and knelt down, examining the piling. He stood up quickly, his expression grave. I need you and your associate to evacuate this structure immediately. What? Why? This dock is structurally unsound. I can see water damage, rot, and what appears to be significant settling. This platform is a safety hazard. Karen's world tilted. But I've been using it for 3 years, then you've been lucky for 3 years. Rodriguez pulled out his radio. I need to call this in. We'll need to post emergency closure notices. As the inspector made his call, Karen saw Marcus walking toward the dock. Their eyes met across the water, and she saw no triumph in his expression, only a deep sadness. You could have killed someone, he said quietly as he approached. All those people you've had on this dock, it's a miracle no one's been seriously hurt. I didn't know, Karen whispered. You didn't want to know. Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. You saw what you wanted to see. A beautiful dock, a perfect business opportunity. You never looked deeper. Inspector Rodriguez finished his call and turned to Karen. I'm issuing an immediate closure order. No one is permitted on this structure until it's been properly inspected and repaired. Any violations will result in fines and potential criminal charges. He handed her a bright red notice. You have 24 hours to remove all personal property. After that, anything left behind will be considered abandoned. Karen stared at the notice, her hands shaking. My equipment, my business, my livelihood. Should have thought of that before you decided to squat on someone else's property, Marcus said. But I'll tell you what. I'm not a cruel man. I'll help you move your things. Karen looked up at him, surprised. You will. I'll help you pack, and I'll make sure everything gets safely to shore. But after that, you're on your own. Why would you help me? Marcus looked out at the lake, his expression distant. Because my daughter would have wanted me to. She always said I was too hard on people, that everyone deserves a chance to make things right. Your daughter? She died in a car accident 5 years ago. She was about your age. Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. She would have hated what you did, but she would have wanted me to show mercy. Karen felt tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I didn't know about your daughter, about the dock's history, about any of it. Oh no. Marcus extended his hand. But sorry doesn't fix the damage. Sorry doesn't undo 3 years of trespassing. Sorry doesn't make that dock safe again. Karen took his hand, feeling the calluses, the strength, the honesty in his grip. What happens now? Now? Now you face the consequences of your choices. Marcus's smile was sad but not unkind. You built your business on someone else's foundation, Karen. Literally. And now that foundation is crumbling. As they shook hands, Karen heard the distant sound of heavy machinery. She looked toward the shore and saw a crane being unloaded from a truck. Behind it, another truck carried what looked like demolition equipment. What's that for? She asked. Marcus followed her gaze. The dock's beyond repair. It has to come down before someone gets hurt. You're going to destroy it. I'm going to rebuild it. The right way this time. With proper permits, proper inspections, proper safety measures. He paused. And when it's done, it'll be a memorial to my daughter. A place where people can come to remember her, to swim in waters she loved. Karen watched the crane positioning itself, understanding finally dawning. She wasn't just losing her business, she was watching Marcus reclaim something precious that she'd unknowingly stolen. The dock wasn't just property to him, it was memory. Legacy, love. I need to make this right, she said quietly. You can't, Marcus replied. But you can stop making it worse. As the afternoon sun beat down on the condemned dock, Karen Whitmore began the process of dismantling the empire she'd built on borrowed time and stolen land, while Marcus Rivera prepared to tear down the past and build something honest from the ruins. By evening, the dock looked like a war zone. Karen's meditation bells lay tangled in a heap, their peaceful chimes replaced by the harsh clang of metal against metal. The yoga platform that had cost her $3,000 was being dismantled by Marcus's crew, board by board, revealing the rotting supports beneath. Jesus, Marcus, Danny called out, pointing to a support beam. Look at this. Marcus waded into the shallow water and examined the beam. The wood was soft as cheese, riddled with holes from boring insects. This should have collapsed months ago. How the hell did it hold up this long? Dumb luck, Danny replied. And maybe divine intervention. Karen sat on the shore, watching her life's work being reduced to salvage. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing, clients demanding refunds, vendors wanting payment, reporters who'd somehow caught wind of the story. She'd stopped answering after the third call from a local news station. Brianna approached with a clipboard full of calculations. The preliminary numbers are in. Between refunds, cancellations, and potential lawsuits, we're looking at about $200,000 in immediate losses. $200,000. Karen's voice was hollow. That's just the beginning. If Sarah Chen's lawsuit goes through, if the insurance company refuses to cover us, if the county decides to fine us for operating without permits. Brianna's voice trailed off. Karen stared at the calculator display, the numbers blurring through. Her tears. 3 years of work, gone. Her reputation, destroyed. Her future, uncertain. There's something else, Brianna said quietly. I've been going through our records, trying to figure out how this happened. Karen, did you ever actually speak to Linda Henderson about using the dock? Karen's stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean, do you remember having a conversation with her? Because I've been looking through your calendar, your emails, your phone records. There's no record of any contact with Linda Henderson. Ever. The blood drained from Karen's face. That's impossible. You remember talking to someone at the Henderson house 3 years ago. But Karen, I think you might have been talking to a caregiver, or maybe a neighbor, or maybe I made the whole thing up in my head. Karen's voice was barely a whisper. Maybe I convinced myself I had permission because I wanted it so badly. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She'd built her entire business on a lie she'd told herself, a conversation that had never happened, a permission that had never been granted. She'd been so desperate to create her wellness sanctuary that she'd manufactured the legal right to do so. Ms. Whitmore. A new voice interrupted her thoughts. She looked up to see a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. Karen's heart stopped. The Sarah Chen who fell on your dock last month? Yes. Dr. Chen sat down beside Karen on the shore. I came to talk to you before I decide whether to file a lawsuit. I can explain, I don't need explanations. I need to understand why you put people at risk. Dr. Chen's voice was calm but firm. I'm a pediatric surgeon, Ms. Whitmore. I've been on medical leave for 6 weeks because of my ankle injury. 6 weeks of surgeries I couldn't perform, children I couldn't help. Karen felt sick. I didn't know the dock was damaged, but you should have known. You should have had it inspected before you started charging people to use it. You should have had proper insurance, proper permits, proper safety measures. Dr. Chen paused. Do you know what I found out when I started investigating? Karen shook her head. This isn't the first time someone's been hurt on that dock. 2 years ago, a woman named Janet Morrison sprained her wrist during one of your sessions. You convinced her it was her fault, that she'd been careless. Last year, a man named Robert Hayes got a nasty splinter that became infected. You told him it was just bad luck. I didn't know you didn't want to know. Because knowing would have meant admitting the dock wasn't safe, and that would have been bad for business. Dr. Chen's voice hardened. You put profits over people's safety, Ms. Whitmore. You put your wellness empire over actual human welfare. Karen stared at the water, watching Marcus's crew continue their demolition work. What do you want from me? I want you to understand the real cost of your choices. Not just the money, not just the business, but the human cost. Dr. Chen stood up. I'll be filing a lawsuit, but not for the reasons you think. I'm suing to make sure this never happens again. To make sure you can't put anyone else at risk. As Dr. Chen walked away, Karen's phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer, need to talk ASAP. County DA is considering criminal charges. Reckless endangerment. Fraud. Operating without permits. Criminal charges. The words hit Karen like a sledgehammer. She wasn't just losing her business, she might be going to jail. Karen. Brianna's voice was worried. There's someone else here to see you. Karen looked up to see a young man in his 20s walking toward her. He had Marcus's dark eyes and strong jaw, but his expression was much harder. You're Karen Whitmore? He asked. Yes. I'm David Rivera, Marcus's son. He sat down beside her uninvited. I wanted to meet the woman who's been making my father's life hell for 3 years. You never meant to get caught. David's voice was cold. Do you know what you put him through? Every time he came to work on his own dock. You treated him like a criminal. You made him feel like he was the one trespassing. Karen watched Marcus in the water, directing his crew with quiet authority. I didn't know it was his dock. You didn't care whose dock it was. You saw something you wanted, and you took it. David leaned forward. Do you know why that dock is so important to him? He said it was a memorial to his daughter. My sister. David's voice cracked. Elena. She learned to swim off that dock. She brought her friends there every summer. She and Dad used to sit there in the evenings, talking about her plans for college, for her life. Karen felt tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, she died coming home from her job at the children's hospital. She was a volunteer, reading to kids with cancer. She was driving home in the rain, and a drunk driver ran a red light. David's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. Dad blamed himself. He thought if he'd picked her up, if he'd insisted she not work so late, if he'd done something different. David, after she died, Dad couldn't even look at the dock. It reminded him too much of her. But 2 years ago, he decided he wanted to restore it, to make it a proper memorial. He got permits, hired engineers, started planning. And every time he came to work on it, there you were, screaming at him to get off your property. Karen's chest felt tight. I didn't know about Elena, you didn't ask. You didn't care. You just wanted him gone so you could keep making money off his memories. David stood up. You stole 3 years from him. 3 years he could have been honoring his daughter instead of fighting to use his own property. As David walked away, Karen understood the full scope of what she'd done. She hadn't just trespassed on Marcus's land, she trespassed on his grief, his healing, his love for his daughter. She'd turned his place of solace into a source of pain. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed her mother's number. Karen. I just saw the news. They are saying you've been operating illegally, that people got hurt. Mom, I can explain. No, Karen. You can't. You can't explain this away like you did with the restaurant in Portland, or the boutique in Seattle, or the consulting business in Denver. Karen's blood ran cold. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the pattern, sweetheart. Every time you start a business, something goes wrong. You cut corners, you bend rules, you tell yourself it's okay because you're helping people. But you're not helping people, Karen. You're helping yourself. That's not true. The restaurant where you served food without proper permits. The boutique where you sold items you knew were counterfeit. The consulting business where you gave advice about industries you knew nothing about. Her mother's voice was full of pain. I've been enabling you for years, bailing you out, helping you start over. But this time, someone could have died. The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone, then at the demolition work, then at her hands. Her mother was right. There was a pattern, a trail of shortcuts and justifications that had led her to this dock, to this moment, to this reckoning. As the sun set over Cedar Lake, painting the water blood red, Karen Whitmore sat alone on the shore, watching Marcus Rivera reclaim what had always been his. The dock was nearly gone now, reduced to pilings and debris. Soon, there would be nothing left of her wellness empire except the wreckage floating in the water. But in the growing darkness, she could see Marcus standing waist-deep in the lake, holding a piece of the original dock in his hands. He was crying, his shoulders shaking with 3 years of suppressed grief. And for the first time, Karen understood that this wasn't just about property or permits or business. This was about love and loss and the terrible price of taking what doesn't belong to you. As the last light faded from the sky, Karen made a decision that would change everything. The Cedar Lake Police Department smelled of stale coffee and broken dreams. Karen sat in the hard plastic chair across from Detective Maria Santos, her hands folded in her lap, her voice steady for the first time in days. I want to confess, she said quietly. To everything. Detective Santos looked up from her notepad, surprised. Ms. Whitmore, I have to advise you that you have the right to an attorney present. I know my rights. I'm waiving them. Karen's voice was calm, resolved. I need to tell the truth. All of it. The detective activated her recording device. This is Detective Santos, case number 2025-1847. Present is Karen Whitmore, age 34, who has waived her right to counsel. Ms. Whitmore, tell me what happened. Karen took a deep breath. I built my business on a lie. I convinced myself I had permission to use Marcus Rivera's dock, but I never did. I never spoke to Linda Henderson about it. I never had any legal right to be there. How long were you operating on the property? 3 years. I charged people money to use the dock for yoga classes, meditation sessions, wellness retreats. I installed equipment, posted no trespassing signs, treated it like my own property. Karen's voice cracked. I prevented the legal owner from using his own dock. I ignored safety hazards that resulted in injuries. I operated without permits, without insurance coverage, without any regard for the law. Detective Santos leaned forward. Ms. Whitmore, why are you telling me this? Because I watched a man cry tonight. A man whose daughter died, who built that dock as a place to remember her, who couldn't even grieve properly because I was there stealing his sanctuary. Karen wiped her eyes. I've been running from the truth my entire life. Cutting corners. Bending rules, telling myself it was okay because I was helping people. But I wasn't helping anyone. I was hurting them. Are you aware that the county is considering criminal charges? Reckless endangerment, fraud, operating without permits. Yes. Karen nodded. I'm ready to face whatever consequences come from this. Detective Santos studied her for a long moment. Ms. Whitmore, I have to ask, why now? Why come forward? Karen closed her eyes, seeing Marcus standing in the water, holding that piece of dock like it was made of gold. Because some things are more important than saving yourself. Some things are more important than pride or reputation or business. I can't give Elena Rivera back to her father, but I can stop standing in the way of his healing. 2 hours later, Karen walked out of the police station into the cool night air. Her phone had been buzzing constantly with calls from reporters, lawyers, and creditors, but she ignored them all. She had one more stop to make. The Rivera house was a modest craftsman bungalow on the other side of town. Karen had looked up the address, driven there 3 times, and sat in her car for 20 minutes before finally finding the courage to walk to the front door. Marcus answered on the second knock. He looked exhausted, his clothes still damp from the lake, his eyes red-rimmed. Karen. What are you doing here? I need to tell you something. May I come in? Marcus hesitated, then stepped aside. The living room was simple but warm, filled with photographs of a young woman with Marcus's eyes and an infectious smile. Elena. I just came from the police station, Karen said. I confessed to everything. Marcus sank into his armchair. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Karen remained standing, feeling like she didn't deserve to sit in his home. I lied to you earlier. I said I didn't know I didn't have permission to use the dock. But the truth is, I never asked. I never even tried to find out who owned it. I just took it. Why? Because I was desperate. My last business had failed, I was in debt, and I needed something to work. When I saw that dock, it was perfect. Beautiful, private, peaceful. I told myself I'd figure out the legal stuff later, after I got established. Karen's voice broke. But later never came. I just kept taking, kept building, kept lying to myself. Marcus studied her face. What do you want from me, Karen? Nothing. I don't want anything from you. I want to give you something. Karen reached into her purse and pulled out a folded paper. This is a list of everyone who attended sessions on your dock. Their names, contact information, the dates they were there. I thought maybe when you rebuild, you might want to invite them to the memorial service for Elena. Marcus took the paper, his hands trembling slightly. Why would you do this? Because they loved that dock too. They found peace there, healing, community. They didn't know they were trespassing any more than I knew I was hurting you. Karen wiped her eyes. Elena's dock gave people something beautiful, even when I was stealing it. Maybe that's what she would have wanted. Marcus unfolded the paper, scanning the names. Some of these people, I remember them. They were kind to me when I tried to swim there. They didn't know I was the owner, but they welcomed me anyway. Dr. Chen is on that list. And Janet Morrison and Robert Hayes. The people who got hurt because of my negligence. I've contacted them all, told them the truth about what happened. Some of them want to contribute to Elena's memorial. Marcus looked up sharply. What? Dr. Chen doesn't want to sue you or the estate. She wants to donate her settlement money to build a proper memorial. A safe one, with medical equipment nearby, with proper safety measures. She said Elena would have wanted people to be able to heal there without getting hurt. Marcus stared at the paper, tears streaming down his face. I don't understand. Why would they do this? Because you raised an extraordinary daughter, Marcus. And the people who met her spirit at that dock want to honor her memory. Karen reached into her purse again. There's something else. She handed him a thick manila envelope. My business records. Every penny I made using your dock, every expense, every transaction. I'm liquidating everything I own to pay restitution. It won't cover all the damages, but it's a start. Marcus opened the envelope, seeing bank statements, receipts, detailed financial records. Karen, this is $43,000. That's what I made in profit using your property. I'm paying it back, plus interest, plus damages to the people who were hurt. Karen's voice was steady. I'm also paying for the environmental cleanup, the structural demolition, and whatever legal fees you incur. I can't take this. You're not taking it. I'm giving it back. It was never mine to begin with. Karen moved toward the door. I'm going away, Marcus. I'm moving back to my parents' house, getting a regular job, paying my debts. I'm done trying to build businesses on other people's foundations. Marcus stood up, still clutching the papers. Karen, wait. She turned back. I forgive you, he said quietly. Elena would have wanted me to forgive you. Karen felt her knees buckle. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, you don't. But forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about healing. Marcus walked to the mantel and picked up a framed photo of Elena. My daughter believed in second chances. She believed people could change if they truly wanted to. I want to change. I want to be better. Then be better. Don't let this destroy you. Let it teach you. Marcus held out the photo. She would have been 27 next month. She wanted to be a pediatric nurse to help sick children. She volunteered at the hospital every week, even while she was in college. Karen looked at the photo, seeing Elena's bright smile, her kind eyes. She was beautiful. She was good. That's what mattered to her, being good, helping people, making the world a little better. Marcus set the photo back on the mantel. If you really want to honor her memory, don't just pay back the money. Find a way to help people. The right way this time. Karen nodded, unable to speak through her tears. As she reached the door, Marcus called out one last time. Karen. The memorial service is next month. If you want to come, you're welcome. Karen looked back at him, this man she'd wronged so deeply, who was still capable of such grace. I'd like that. If you're sure. I'm sure. Elena would have wanted you there. Karen walked out into the night, her phone buzzing with missed calls and threatening messages. Tomorrow she would face the legal consequences of her actions. She would lose everything she'd built, everything she'd worked for. But for the first time in her life, she felt like she was walking towards something instead of running away from it. As she drove through the quiet streets of Cedar Lake, she passed the shoreline where the dock had stood. In the darkness, she could see the silhouette of Marcus's crew working by floodlight, beginning the process of building something new from the ruins of what she'd destroyed. Something honest. Something worthy of Elena's memory. Something built on a foundation of truth instead of lies.